Welcome to Spirits Podcast, a boozy dive into mythology, legends, and folklore. Every week, we pour a drink and learn about a new story from around the world. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Julia.
We are so pleased today to have two authors, photographers, creative professionals with us, Kahran and Reg. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you. And to get us started, how about you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we can get into all the delightful fairy tale details.
Sure. So again, we are photographers, but we like to say that we're more than just photographers. We really use our platform as a way to empower kids of color around the world by showcasing their beauty, uniqueness, and creativity. And so, we felt like there was a lack of representation of positive imagery in terms of kids of color in the media. And so we stepped in to do something about it. So, we showcase them in really cool ways. We kind of serve as dream makers for them. So whether, they want to be a scientist or an astronaut, we really just try to showcase that in a really cool and unique way.
Yeah, I know that one of the books we're going to be talking about your newest book, Crowned, but one of the books that really brought you guys into the spotlight was Glory, Magical Visions of Black Beauty. And
yes,
looking at the photography in that, it is absolutely stunning.
Oh, thank you.
I know you talked a little bit about it, but what kind of inspired you to come together and put these photos into a book that, could help bring kind of awareness to the ways that you can break the conventional beauty standards for Black children?
Yeah. So, we started a series called the Afro Art Series around 2017. And that was originally started with just showcasing the beauty and versatility of Afro hair. But as we started to shoot it, we started to realize that so many of these kids had, so many unique and interesting stories, right? And so our first book, Glory, we highlighted, each of the kids' stories. So, we had a little girl who was a DJ. We had a young girl who was an 8-year-old neuroscience expert, right? And so we highlighted these stories of kids across the African diaspora from here in the US, from the UK, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, everywhere. And so now with the Crown book, it's, kind of our take on fairy tales, right? Because we also, saw the lack of diversity within that space as well. And so, with the Crown book, instead of it focusing on stories from each one of the kids, these are actually fairy tales, right? So it's the first chapter is our take on existing fairy tales like Cinderella and Snow White and Goldilocks. But then the second chapter actually contains African folklore stories, right? Because we felt like, we never hear about those, right? We never learn them growing up. So, we thought it would be interesting to do our spin on kind of a modern take on some traditional African folklore stories. But then the third chapter, we're super excited about because we get to highlight new stories of our own, right? New fairy tales of our own that we've created. We have, a princess with no hair. We highlight a story about a little girl in real life. She has cerebral palsy, but, we just wanted to showcase, a diverse range of kids everywhere. Our frog prince has albinism and the princess has vitiligo, right? So, we just have a wide range of kids that can really, hopefully see themselves represented in these fairy tales.
Yeah. And it's really stunning. I love the retellings of all of the fairy tales, whether it be the African diaspora stories or the kind of classic European fairy tales. I would love to talk about, we'll go through kind of chapter by chapter and talk about it a bit. But I love the Childhood Reimagined, which is the kind of European fairy tales. And what I liked too about in reading a lot of them was one, a lot of the stories in fairy tales tend to be very romance focused.
Yes.
And obviously this is a book featuring children and stuff like that.
Yes.
And I really liked that you changed a lot of the focus from this is not about romantic relationships, but this is about friendships and stuff like that. Particularly, the first story of the book rather is the retelling of The Little Mermaid that you did.
Yes.
And one, love that she doesn't lose her voice in that.
Exactly.
Very good. Is able to stand up for herself, which is also fantastic.
Yes.
And two, I love that it's all about her trying to like find these friendships out there and like find people that she feels like she belongs with before realizing like, hey.
And her realizing that all along, you know, she already had what she needed, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, I think Reg and I, you know, you can kind of speak to this a little bit, Reg, but when we were kind of looking through to figure out which fairy tales we were going to do, and we started, you know, we were like binge watching all the fairy tales, you know, on YouTube and, you know, trying to get through all of them. And
it was just started off like, you know, started off a little fun, and then I was like, oh my gosh, what? And then every story we read and just reheard, we were just like, oh my god,
the guy would save the day, or you know, Reg was like, wait a minute, he came in and one day and we were like listening to Goldilocks, and he was like, wait. Like, first of all, what is the moral of the story? Like, second of all, Goldilocks just comes in and she just like snatches up their stuff, and you know, so in our story, Goldilocks, she actually, you know, was a little girl who had everything, you know, materially. She had all these material things, and when she went to the bear's house, you know, they didn't have a lot, but they had each other, and she realized that, you know, it wasn't about the material things, that she would much rather, you know, have a family and people who love her rather than just being surrounded with all these material things and not have, you know, people around her. So, you know, again, we were, you know, trying to, you know, just do a modern spin on some of these stories, because you have to think about it. A lot of these stories were written, you know, hundreds of years ago, right? And so the themes then were different from what would be relevant today. So
yeah, the themes back then were more like, hey, marry the person that your father tells you to marry.
Exactly. And even when we were going through the African folklore stories, like almost all of those were about, you know, the girl being sold off, you know what I mean, for marriage, you know. And so it was kind of like, you know, okay, let's figure out a way that we can, you know, still tell these stories, but, you know, in a more modern way.
Yeah.
I feel like we needed to reprogram these kids.
Yeah.
It's true. And then when you realize that this stuff impacts what we think is normal or what we are looking for when we are kids, you know, I think a lot of people end up just like, you know, buying books for their kids or watching movies with their kids. And then they're like, oh, wait, what the heck is this?
Right. Exactly. And I tell people, you know, because a lot of people are like, well, why do you want to remake these, you know, fairy tales, or it's just fairy tales? But I said, as a kid, you know, that's kind of all you have. You know, that's your first introduction to quote unquote real life, right? And so, you know, you look at these princesses and you think, oh my gosh, you know, my hair needs to be blonde and it needs to be long, you know, or, you know, my skin tone needs to be a certain way. And so it really just helps them to, you know, just see themselves represented and feel more included.
Yeah. And I mean, we're seeing that right now with, I don't want to promote Disney as like a thing, but like The Little Mermaid and Halle Bailey.
Yes.
It's beautiful. And seeing those reactions that, you know, these
and
kids
seeing the
of color
kids all dressed up, you know, and just feeling like they finally have a part in it. Like, you know, it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that one. That was your first story, and your artistic interpretation of it is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
And it makes me just so happy to see all these. And really, like the hairstyling and the artistry is just stunning. Sorry, I'm going to hype up this.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we're an audio medium, but I'm going to you know, we'll obviously post links so that people can pick up the book and check it out. But it is honestly gorgeous.
Thank you.
I'd love to talk a little bit more about, I guess, the process of how you chose the fairy tales that you want to reimagine. I know you talked about kind of watching videos and trying to decide there. Was there like some that you were like, maybe we'll do that one, but it didn't make the cut, or ones that you knew immediately that you want to do?
Yeah, I can't remember which ones didn't make the cut, but I know, we wanted to do Alice in Wonderland, but one, the story was so long, right? And we were trying to fit so many, you know, into this short format. We just felt like we couldn't really do the story justice because I feel like, you know, it needed much more. And so we were looking at that, you know, in terms of the story and the length and, you know, how much we could pare it down for, you know, this particular book. But we were also looking visually to figure out, you know, which ones kind of went with our style, which ones we were inspired by visually, and which ones we felt like we could really, you know, do a good job at, you know, kind of putting our own spin on it. So we were, you know, looking at all of those things. And then obviously we wanted to make sure we had both boys and girls included. And so we had to make sure we had a mix of, you know, boys and girls. And then for the new fairy tales, it was really, you know, just, we had a few different things we wanted to do. Like we had just watched that movie, is it Harder They Fall, the cowboy movie, right? And so we wanted to do like we always wanted to do some type of cowboy theme shoot. So we did that. And the Candyland, I actually was inspired by, there was a designer that we work with in Chicago, and she actually made all these beautiful like candy dresses and pieces. And so it's like, oh, we could do something really cool with that. So, in that one, we kind of got to do our own thing. So one of the stories was actually inspired by a friend of mine. So she's actually the designer that did the Red Riding Hood and also Joker's Dragon. She had kind of a tragic story. Her daughter was tragically killed in a domestic violence situation. And her grandson was taken away, and, she hasn't been able to even talk to him or reach out to him. And that's been super painful for her. So she's been publicly journaling and writing these stories for him, hoping that one day he'll be able to see that, his grandmother never stopped loving him, that she was, still here.
Wow.
So she had these stories about, this Joka, character. And so we worked together with her to create this story, Joka's Dragon, in honor of her grandson. So that was really special. And I was glad that, we were able to do it with the thought that, he would be able to read this and know that, this was a dedication from his grandmother. So,
and she also created the outfit for that.
Yeah, she did the wardrobe for it as well. So yeah, it was super special.
I love that. I was going to ask a little bit more about kind of the inspirations for the new stories that are featured in the third chapter.
Yes.
I am really in love with, in particular, the story of the princess with no hair. Can you tell me a little bit about the background for that?
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. So first of all, Morgan is in real life. She's a little girl with alopecia, and she is fierce. Okay. We actually just had our crowned fashion show for our launch party this past weekend.
Amazing.
And she was there, and she was the life of the party. Okay. We have like dancing videos of her where she is literally the center of the party. So I just love that about her. I love that she kind of hasn't let this condition define, who she is. And I wanted that because I felt like, with a lot of the fairy tales, it's always, a princess, they have really long hair and they have this flowing hair. And I'm like, princess can have no hair, right? Yeah. She can rock it with no hair, and she does it well. And, in this story, the aunt of the story was actually trying to, she was mad at her sister, the girl's mother, and she cut all the little girl's hair off, kind of in retaliation. And, the little girl actually kind of turned around and taught her aunt a story, that, it wasn't about the hair, and that, she can be confident and proud without it. So yeah, I love that story. I love that, it kind of mimics her real life personality and character. And, I just want to show little girls that may be facing a similar situation that they can be confident and proud as well.
Yeah.
The story does reflect exactly who she is.
Yeah, exactly.
She doesn't even want hair at this point.
Right. Like she says that, like, if she could grow hair, she doesn't want it. Right.
I love that.
So yeah, I love that about her. Like, she is just super confident and like literally, the life of the party, when we were there. So
that's so beautiful. I really think that like a lot of the personalities of these kids that you featured really shine through in the stories that they're featured in, the way you guys styled them. It's such an awesome thing to see, and I love it so much.
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's also so amazing to see kids taking up the entire frame of the shot. And like, I'm struck, especially with the girl you're just mentioning, who in the book is styled as a princess with no hair.
Yes.
One of my favorite images from the book has an adult kind of looking off screen with her hands framing like beautiful, like headpiece that this girl is wearing. And it's just, I don't know, it's such a moving like centering of kids, like literally and metaphorically.
That was actually her mom.
Oh, great.
Mom had no idea that she was going to be a hand model that day, right?
Well, she has beautiful nails, so.
I was like, yeah, she had her nails done and everything. But, we really, when we thought about it, because we were going through these, we were like, should we, some of them obviously had adults in the story, but we really wanted the focus to be on the kids. And so for this, a lot of the story was about the girl and, her aunt. And I just felt like, I needed something. So I said, let's just have the aunt's hands, in the story kind of crowning the girl at the end. And I felt like that was a good way to really center, like you said, center the focus on the model, but then still tell the story of the aunt, kind of crowning her. So I love that.
It's amazing.
That's Awesome. I'm such like not a photography person. Yeah. So Amanda, thank you for like bringing up photography questions for me.
Listen, I feel like I'm like inexpertly ordering a dish in French whenever I try to talk about visual art, just because that is not how my brain like operates.
No, it's fun.
I wonder for the both of you, how does your creative process start with imagining? Because to me, it seems so seamless that the words and the photos really flow together. So are those inseparable in your minds? Do you tend to start with one or the other?
I think for the most part, we started with the imagery. So we, developed mood boards for each one of these. So the mood boards had, our inspiration for clothing and the model and the hair and makeup, everything. And then that helped to lead the story. So we had someone that kind of helped us with the stories to figure out, how we can put them all together. And she was really good about, we really kind of collaborated back and forth to figure out, all right, does this make sense for this story? Okay, at first we imagine it this way, but the girl is actually going to be in this purple dress. So, we need to adjust it a little bit. And so that was a really, really fun process in terms of, kind of going back and forth and figuring out how do we tailor the stories to make it work for the actual images, because obviously we wanted the imagery to be the focus and then kind of tell the story around that. So.
And I think you did a fantastic job in just like reading it and seeing the imagery and stuff like that.
Thank you.
I also really liked the way that, like, I'm particularly like on my screen right now, I'm looking at the beautiful image of Ebony Black from your retelling of Snow White and the Poisoned Apple.
Yes.
And I love that while you look at the colors, instantly who the character is, but I love the kind of like African influence on the outfit. It's beautiful.
Exactly. And I was like, that story, I just already knew with the Ebony Black story, we love when we visit Kenya, the Maasai culture, right? Like, and we knew that the colors and everything would kind of tie in with that. And so we wanted to kind of incorporate a little of that heritage into the Ebony Black story. And so we actually had the process for making that dress was actually interesting because it started with, I have a friend that we work with and she's actually in London, but she hand beads a lot of pieces that are kind of like modern. They're kind of like a modern spin on traditional Maasai beading.
Wow.
And she had created this beautiful like corset piece that I loved. And it was for an adult, obviously. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like that would be so perfect for the dress that I want, that I envisioned for the Ebony Black story. And, she doesn't usually do pieces for kids. And so she was like, well, if you can get me a corset, I'll do it for you.
Amazing.
And so then I started looking, I was like, wait a minute. Like kids don't have corsets. That doesn't even exist, right?
Right.
So basically it was kind of a round the world collaboration. So our designer in Chicago, she designed the corset. She shipped it off to her in London. She hand beaded it. The designer in Chicago also did the dress that went underneath, so the skirt and the sleeves. And so then she shipped the corset piece and we placed it on top of the dress that we created. So so it was really, really cool to see it all come together. But yeah, it was really fun. I love that we were able to kind of incorporate, that bit of culture and still make it work so that you recognize her as the traditional character.
Yeah, and what amazing collaboration to create it. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's so fun.
And you style her with a, Maasai shield, and there's like a beautiful like beaded figure in the photo as well.
Yes.
And like it makes all the sense in the world in the visual language you put together that she'll also have like a beautiful neon yellow tulle skirt, underneath. It's just, it's so cohesive.
It's kind of like incorporating some of the traditional, but adding our own spin to it. And that's kind of what we do in our regular shoots anyway. So that part, I feel like kind of comes natural for us.
And also, the beautiful thing that I love about my wife is that she uses our platform to give designers that don't get to shine a platform as well.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's huge, because I feel like a lot of times there's so many, talented designers that we've worked with in other countries or, just even here that, I feel like don't get the spotlight. And so by us incorporating them into our, work, obviously it helps us because they have beautiful pieces, but it also helps to give them a platform as well.
How do you go about finding those people to collaborate typically?
Oh gosh, social media mostly. Yeah, social media. But, we get them from everywhere. We actually had the lady that I was talking about, the designer that made the Red Riding Hood piece and the Joker piece. We were doing a photography workshop and this lady came up to us afterwards and she's like, I have to introduce you to Sarah Bunn. Like, she is amazing. She does these like Afro-Victorian style dresses. And I just feel like your styles would mesh well together. So I went and looked her up and I was like, oh my gosh, her stuff is amazing. And so we ended up working together on the Glory book. And then, we worked together on this one as well. So yeah, it's all about collaborating and making connections. I feel like, I love that everyone gets to kind of put their own spin on it. And I think it's what makes, our imagery so unique.
That's amazing.
I was thinking so much. I'm glad to see that the image of Ebony Black in the studio with the portraits of people on the floor is featured on your website, because it's so moving to have that, it's the self-reflection, right? It's like the frames on the floor. It's like other Black ancestors.
Exactly. And I said a lot of people don't realize those were all images of, I would say, powerful Black female figures. So there was Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth. All of those are images that are surrounding her. And that's one of my favorite images, because I feel like it's so powerful for her to be there surrounded by, all of her, these strong ancestors, right? So,
and that made me wonder as well about the origin of your business, Creative Soul Photography, and kind of how that came about. I really love that you state your mission as believing that everyone deserves to truly be seen, which involves images, but obviously that word means so much more. Right. So how did the business come about, and sort of what do you see as your day-to-day mission and work? What really lights you up and makes you excited to come into work?
So when we first started out, we were kind of like every other photographer. We were doing a little bit of everything, whatever you would pay us for, right? And I was actually still working full-time in corporate America, doing marketing and design and some other things. And so I just felt like we kind of came to a point where we would photograph a wedding and we would hate it, right? Or, we would do different things. And I'm like, okay, if we're building this as our business, why would we build a business that we hate, right? It didn't make any sense that we were going to be building this business that we were, still going to not like it. Right? And so, I felt like we always had a love for photographing kids. We just didn't know at the time that we could make a living from doing it. I didn't know any photographers at the time that were just focused on photographing kids, right? And so we started to just kind of do personal projects on our own on the side, where we were just photographing kids in our own way. And then we decided, I don't even know why we decided on New York, but we
never been to
at the time. Yeah, we had never, that was our first trip to New York.
We didn't know it was going to be that crowded.
We went to Times Square because, of course, if you go to New York, you're like, oh, Times Square, right? So we had these 3 little 5-year-old girls and this big Afro hair and these big poofy dresses in the middle of the chaos in Times Square. And it was insane. Okay. But that's actually, kind of the first time that we started to get traction. We started to get, some folks that shared it. The reason why we ended up doing that in the first place was because we started to get in the kids fashion industry, and a lot of the kids that had natural Afro hair would come in to get their headshots, and the parents would have their hair straightened before they came in because they thought that's what they needed to do to get their kid into the industry, get them into Gap or Old Navy or whatever, right? And so we're like, wow, at an early age, we're teaching these kids that they're not acceptable, that their look is not enough, right? And so
in their own house.
Yeah. And so we kind of took it upon ourselves to showcase kids, looking fashionable with natural hair. And so that's kind of how we got started and how we, we just kind of evolved from there. So now I think our day-to-day, we, really serve as dream makers for kids. So parents, they book a session with us and we ask if your child could have the shoot of their dreams, what would it be? Right. And we obviously get some really interesting, responses, but we literally just serve as dream makers. Reg gets nervous after that because now he has to go and make it happen. Right. So he has to pull all the pieces together and, whether they say they want to be a ballerina or, whatever it is, we just try to make that happen for them. So yeah, it's rewarding. I love that space that we're in right now because it's really just a lot of people see our social media pages and they think that we only work with models. And I'm like, no, we just turn them into models, right? 95% of the kids that we work with are just regular everyday kids. And, I love that because they appreciate it. They love it. It's like a big play date for them. So
what a powerful act of self-assertion, to for you to ask the child what, and props to the parents too for saying I want my child to have their vision taken to life.
And I said, surprisingly, I love that. I would say 98% of the parents that come, like, at first I put it up. So I do have a section where, I give the parents an outlet because, obviously they're paying, right? So, I say, parents, do you have any specific preferences or requests, so that I can figure out how to weave into it. But I would say 98% of them say go with whatever the child wants,
Wow.
And I love that about them because it's, it's really their day and it's letting them, have a say in what they want to do and what they want to be. It's really, a reflection of them. So the photos are really a reflection of them. And I love that.
Yeah. To see your image of yourself made real
Yes.
outside of your imagination is incredible. Reg, what was the last request that made you think like, oh God, how am I going to make this happen?
It's not so much. It's just be like when they want to be something like a unicorn ninja.
Oh, wait, we got a good one. So the little girl who said, oh my gosh, I wish I could find her request, but she wanted to be a cheetah girl, but she also wanted roller skates. She wanted to pie a mannequin in the face. She wanted to have Lizzo music playing, right?
I might have the mental capacity.
Yes.
Like that.
Oh gosh. So wait a minute. I have it right here. So I'm going to read it to you.
Beautiful. Let's do it.
So she says, I want fun Lizzo music playing. I would look beautiful, fierce, and scary. I like yellow and black and a hint of white. I would be sword fighting on a tropical island. There would be food in the pictures and at the photo shoot. I would be holding a lemon meringue pie and would be able to pie a mannequin in the face with it. I might also like to wear roller skates and I want to be like a cheetah. And I would love to have a cheetah cub in the shoot with me.
Oh my God.
Listen, she knows what she wants.
And this
so
girl
shout out
knows
to
what
that.
she wants, but I said it.
Yeah.
I don't have no cheetahs.
Yeah.
I don't have no island.
But you guys have to see the photos afterward. We literally had a mannequin, and at the end, she did get to pie the mannequin in the face with her lemon meringue pie.
Oh my
gosh. It was so fun. Like her mom was like just over the moon. She said, I had no idea how you guys were going to put this together, but her mom was completely over the moon that we actually bought all this together. She had this big, like, oh my gosh, this extravagant cheetah gown with a long train.
Wow.
She had a sword, and this crown. And I mean, it fit her perfectly. And we had the Lizzo music playing.
Naturally.
And then it happened to be the day that she was going to see Taylor Swift in concert. So she got to wear her hair out to go see Taylor Swift afterwards. So
oh my God. This is the best day of this girl's life.
So like seriously, like she had the best day.
I think that was the best day of my life.
Right.
Yeah. Just hearing about it.
Yes.
Oh gosh, that's incredible. I want to see those photos. Please send them to us if you can.
Yes, I will definitely send them over because they are epic.
So I stress out the fact that I think I overthink things a lot. So
yeah.
I'm like, how am I'm gonna do all this? So,
yeah. But now I kind of will do a lot of the pre-planning up front. And so that he doesn't have to do some of the earlier stuff. And then by the time it gets to him, I'm just like, okay, Reg, look, I need, a sword. I need this. You know what I mean? And it makes it a lot easier. Yeah.
Oh gosh, that sounds like such an incredible process. I love that so much.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Let's talk a little bit more about your process and maybe a little bit more about the African folklore stories that you feature in Crowned. Mm-hmm. But first, let's take a quick break. Hey, it's Julia, and welcome to The Refill. Let's start off by thanking our newest patrons, Sarah and Noah. Thank you so much for joining the ranks of people like our supporting producer-level patrons, Alicia, Ann, Brittany, Fruity Chick, Hannah, Jack Marie, Jane, Nieselkins, Lily, Matthew, Megan, Moon, Nathan, Phil Fresh, Rico like Captain Jonathan Malachi Cosmos, Sarah, and Scott, and of course our legend-level patrons, Ariana, Audra, Bex, Chibi Yokai, Morgan H, Sarah, and BM Me Up Scotty. And you too can join the ranks of our patrons over at patreon.com/spirits podcast. You can get recipe cards for every episode, ad-free episodes, and so much more. Check it out at patreon.com/spirits podcast. I love to recommend things for y'all, and today I'm going to recommend a book that I am right smack in the middle of, but ooh boy, I love this chunky book so much. It is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. It is the prequel to The Priory of the Orange Tree, which you might have heard me recommend on the podcast before. So good, beautiful, high fantasy, world building, and so many gay couples. I am obsessed. Really love it as a prequel. It's such a good prequel sequel that it's making me want to reread Prior of the Orange Tree when I am finished. So that is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. Go check it out. And if you wish that you had more Multitude shows to catch up on, good news! We make a weekly debate show featuring all of our hosts called Head, Heart, Gut. Each month we take an iconic set of 3 items from pop culture or the world we live in, and we pit them against each other. In the first 3 weeks, each of our contestants will present their choice, answering the questions on our definitive survey of greatness. And in week 4, each contestant participates in a formal debate with a special guest judge. We've decided stuff like what's the best fruit, what's the best movie sequel, what is the best thing to do at a theme park, and so much more. There are literally years worth of arguments between the Multitude hosts to cover, so check it out. Head, Heart, Gut is exclusively for members of the MultiCrew, which is our membership program that helps support all of Multitude. If you want a preview of the show, search for Head, Heart, Gut in your podcast app for the sample episodes, where you can listen to 8 episodes for free. Again, search Head, Heart, Gut in your podcast player for a Head, Heart, Gut sample and see what the MultiCrew has been loving for years. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp, and sometimes in life we are faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. It can be really difficult sometimes to figure out what is going to be best for you. Maybe you're facing things with a lot of doubt, maybe you've been burned in the past, and that is affecting your decision making, and that's something that I tend to talk to a therapist about, and I find that therapy really helps me in dealing with decisions around my career, relationships, or anything like that. And trusting yourself to make the decisions that align with your values is like anything, which is like the more you practice it, the easier it gets. And practicing with a therapist really, really helps. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just have to fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Therapy is a way to help you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so that you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/spirits today to get 10% off your first month. That is betterhelp.com/spirits. And now summer is in full swing, and Brooklinen is here to help you swap out winter warmth for easy, breezy comfort with their award-winning sheets and home essentials. They are perfect for hot sleepers, for staying cool, and getting rest after fun in the sun. According to Wirecutter and Good Housekeeping, Brooklinen has best-in-class bedding. So if you don't trust me or their 100,000 5-star customer reviews, you know these experts have done the research. Brooklinen uses only the highest quality materials for all of their products, such as long staple cotton, so everything they create is built to last. I know that I get sweaty at night. I like to be as cool as possible when it comes to my summer nights. And even when I have the AC blasting, sometimes I used to still wake up sweating. But since I changed over to my Brooklinen sheets, the buttery soft sheets, the best sheets on the internet, I have been really just sleeping like a baby every night. It is wonderful. And Brooklinen is the perfect way to build your own indoor oasis to escape the heat. The options are endless, so do yourself a favor by simplifying your shopping by bundling bed, bath, and both. You can save time and up to 25% when bundling your new favorite home essentials. Shop in store or online at brooklinen.com today to give yourself the cooling sleep you deserve this summer. Use promo code SPIRITS for $20 off your online purchases of $100 or more, plus free shipping on brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com. Use promo code SPIRITS for $20 off plus free shipping. And now let's get back to the show. Now that we're back, we always like to ask what y'all have been drinking lately, whether that is cocktails, mocktails, maybe coffee to get through some of these photo shoots, etc. What have y'all been enjoying lately?
So we are lame. We are both non-drinkers. So
that's totally fine.
People, okay.
Welcomed and celebrated.
Yes. We love a mocktail.
So yes, I'm listen, on a daily basis, I'm a lemonade girl, okay? Like I call myself a lemonade connoisseur, okay? So
all right. So what are you looking for in a lemonade? What makes a great lemonade for you?
Oh gosh, it has to be like the right level of sweet, like not too bitter, not too sour. Just it can't be too bitter or too sour. I think it just needs to be like the right level, not too sweet either. Like has to be like that perfect balance. I'm a Southern girl, so we grew up on lemonade. Like lemonade was everywhere. Mm-hmm. I can do any type of lemonade, but yeah, that's my thing. Reg, what I was gonna say, you're like
I've been drinking a lot of coffee lately.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, to be honest with you, I'd never drank coffee before, but to be able to get through all the stuff that we've been doing, I had to start getting Starbucks a lot.
Yeah. What, 3 books now? The business,
right?
I'll do it.
What do I get? The blonde latte with the extra shots of espresso.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, I see
nice. You. Yes.
And cramps.
Right. Yeah. So yeah.
Now I gotta ask if you have a at-home lemonade recipe that is your favorite, or you just like.
I don't. I'm actually pretty like when it comes to actually making it. Like no.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair, totally fair.
I have never had a homemade lemonade is not like homemade iced tea.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Like I feel like now there are like some certain like restaurants that we have like this soul food restaurant Pascal's that I really like their lemonade. So a lot of the soul food restaurants here, I feel like those are usually my favorites. So
yeah. I'm not going to buy like 30 lemons though to like make a gallon of lemonade at home.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Right. So here, like I can't nail it like they can. So I don't even try.
Right.
Listen, leave it to the experts.
Do you mess with like a, hibiscus lemonade, like an iced tea lemonade, or just straight up?
No, straight lemonade. Yeah. Reg will tell you I'm so picky and plain. Like I'm a Southern girl at heart. I grew up with my great grandmother who was like this old Southern grandmother. Right. And she literally she cooked soul food like 5 days a week. Right.
Beautiful.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, we were pretty much, that was it,
You got spoiled, fancy. It doesn't get better than that.
Simple and Southern, right?
Well, speaking of growing up, can you tell me a little bit about the stories you grew up with? And are any of them represented in this book? Or is this book more of an effort to branch out beyond the things you grew up with?
Yeah, I think, a lot of them like, Cinderella, obviously, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, that was really fun. And, Little Red Riding Hood, all of those are ones that I grew up with. But, even though I love, doing the reimaginings, like we both just like to tell new stories, right? Like we feel like that's kind of where we thrive. And we like coming up with our own characters and our own stories. And so, I think that was kind of the parts that we were most excited about, even though, we were excited, obviously, to kind of have a retelling of some of these existing stories. But we just really enjoy coming up with new characters because it kind of gives us the creative outlet to have our, our freedom, right? Like there's no precedent. So, it's the sky's the limit. We can do whatever. So, yeah, I was kind of excited about that.
Yeah, and a lot of boys don't have stories either, so I was excited that we included 2 brand new stories too as well.
Right, yeah,
because we had cartoons. So
right.
That is fair.
Yeah.
I want to transition a little to talk about the African folklore chapter in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And first story in that chapter right away is one of our favorite characters from like all of folklore, which is Anansi.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Love Anansi.
Oh my God.
Always good. Oh, and so many options for stories. How did you guys go about picking which stories you wanted to feature for this chapter?
Yeah. So same thing, we had to kind of figure out which ones would work best for our imagery. And then also, like I said, we weeded out a lot of them because a lot of them were like, handing the girl off to her partner, and I was like, we really had to figure out where we could make the stories that made the most sense. For this Anansi story, actually, it was this is kind of my favorite, I guess, behind the scenes story of the shoot. So a lot of people don't realize we were actually in this room. We did the shoot from this room. Mm-hmm. The boy is in Ghana. the body artist is in Ghana. We figured out a way to remotely fire the camera.
That's amazing.
From our laptop.
Wow.
From our laptop here. So we were on Zoom and we directed him on Zoom. We were kind of watching the body artist do his thing on Zoom. And once he had it all set up, we had an assistant that we guided on, which settings to put the camera on. He put it on a tripod and, how to set up the lighting. And then with the power of technology, we were able to remotely fire the camera from our laptop. So, I mean, it is insane. So we literally, if you guys in the book, so we had to make him a spider. Yes. And so, we had to have his, 8 arms, and we had him basically doing different, hand positions. And we were able to kind of merge that together in Photoshop. So it was a really, really fun process. I can't wait I haven't shared I'm going to create a reel that shows all the behind the scenes moments from that, because it was just a super interesting process. And it's something that I haven't seen done before and I haven't done before myself, but I think it's going to open up the door for, so many other opportunities, in case we aren't able to travel to a particular place, we could still, figure out a way to do a shoot there. So I was super excited about that.
Now, here I am really excited about all these stories, but you're out here pioneering intercontinental photography.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Insane. I love that.
Yeah, it was insane. I literally, because I remember during the COVID period, a lockdown, a lot of photographers were doing these, was it FaceTime sessions or something like that? Mm-hmm. And I thought that was cool. But, as a photographer, you're like, I don't want the phone quality. I want my camera quality,
Yeah. And you don't want to get a hard drive shipped to you, right? Or get it all on Dropbox later and be like, oh my God, the aperture, whatever.
I want the camera quality. And I said, it just so happens we're ambassadors for Canon. And so we worked with someone there that, we figured out, I was I knew that we already had the software. I just had to make sure that it could work. And so we kind of talked with them and they're like, yeah, I think this could work. And so
wow.
We did a trial run, the day before. And I was like, okay, it's looking pretty good. I was super nervous though, because the body artist, even though he's in Ghana, he was from a different part of Ghana. So he had to fly in for the shoot. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this has to go right.
So many pieces had to connect together at the right time.
Yeah, this has to go right? And the little boy had never modeled before. It was my assistant's neighbor, right?
Mm-hmm. Really? I was going to say his hand modeling is incredible.
Yeah, right. But that was his first time ever modeling. And so my assistant, we were, kind of moving his arms to where we needed it to be. And, it just worked out. So yeah, I was so excited about it.
That's such a cool background story to those photos. Amazing. Oh my gosh. Another one that I really love from this chapter is how the zebra got his stripes story, and your model with vitiligo.
Yes.
It's such beautiful, both body art, and costuming, and it just features a really I
was gonna say unique. He's unique so
model.
Unique. Oh my gosh. First of all, I found him. I forgot what I was looking for on Instagram, and I just happened to run across, I think his mom only had 4 pictures of him on Instagram, but I found that picture and I literally stalked her down. I was like, listen, this kid is so unique. I have to have him in this book. He has, I forgot the specific name of the type of vitiligo that he has, but he has a specific type of vitiligo. His mom told me that usually with vitiligo, people start with a few spots and then it moves throughout their body throughout their lifetime. He actually was born with it that way. And it is symmetrically on one side of his body only. And it literally, everyone asks if it's a painting. It literally looks like a painting.
It does.
It's on one side of his chest, one side of his face. It is the most unique thing that I've ever seen in my life. And I think it's just absolutely gorgeous, right? And so I knew that he would be perfect for the story. I wanted that to be the centerpiece. I wanted to obviously showcase his beautiful, vitiligo stripes, but then also, with the story, how the zebra got its stripes, have some body art on one side with the zebra as well. So we had a lot of fun with that. It was just fun for us, fun for him. We had a body artist come in and do the zebra stripes. But yeah, it was just a really fun story.
Yeah, and I love that there's that very striking image of him with the fire in the one hand as well, which is really cool.
Yes, because the baboon burns his butt, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
For the process of this, did you choose the story and then like seek out a model with vitiligo, or did you have the model in mind first?
Yeah, so I knew that I had the model first, and then we're kind of looking through the stories, and I was like, oh, perfect fit, right? Like this would kind of go perfectly with what we envisioned for the imagery. So it was usually, we had the stories in mind first, and then we figured out the model. But in this particular case, I already had the model, and I knew that, we wanted to do something unique with him.
That's amazing. I love that so much. One of the stories in this chapter is actually one, like a few of these I had heard before or just had learned about through research and stuff like that. Yes. But one of them that I hadn't heard before was the legend of Princess Yananga.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's such an incredible story. For the listeners, can you give them a little tease about what the story is about?
Yes, that's one of my favorites. So this story, the little girl, Princess Yananga, she wants to, again, there's like a big event, I guess like a sporting event, basically where, folks are trying to be the king's, I don't know what you call it, like their assistant or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. They are wanting to compete, run this race, and then they have to, I guess, do some spear fighting and some other things. And the king is telling her that she can't participate because she's a girl, right? Mm-hmm. And that only the boys can do it. And so she basically gets into this headdress to pretend like she's a boy to participate. And she starts running the race, and her headdress falls off. And they realize that she's a girl. And the girls in the crowd basically like erupt and cheer, and they like start cheering her on. And she actually ends up winning the race and winning the contest, and goes on obviously to win the spot. But it is just kind of a story showing that girls can do it too, kind of thing. Kind of a female empowerment story. But I love that she was just strong and strong-willed, and didn't let that stop her. She was just like, listen, I can do whatever the boys can do, right? So yeah, I love that story.
It's a very good one, and I love the retelling of it and the artistry of it. It's really, really awesome.
Thank you.
I also, just one more in this part of this story, and I really like not only that you guys were doing kind of stories like traditional African folklore, but also telling kind of African-American and African diaspora stories. Right. And the fact that you featured John Henry was something that I was really excited to see. Because like when you open up I guess like a fairy tale book, you're not expecting to see something that is very like
a John Henry, right?
Like a John Henry, right? And so that was a really fun and interesting choice to include in the book.
And I just felt like it was such a classic story in terms of African-American folklore, but it's not heard enough. You know what I mean? Yeah. And for that one, that was actually the only story that we didn't do a new shoot for. So the interesting thing was when we were coming up with like the mood board and, what we wanted to do, we realized that we had actually already done a similar shoot. I can't even remember what he wanted to do eventually. Legos. Yeah, I think he like Legos and Minecraft. Yes, Minecraft. That's what it was. Yeah. And I was like, it was like the exact imagery that we were wanting for this John Henry story. So we took the original images were just on like a studio backdrop. And so we basically, kind of merged it together with other imagery in Photoshop to, give it a background and give it imagery, and give it a setting. And it was exactly what we were looking for the John Henry story. So that was like our first one. We were like, oh, check, done,
All right, we're all good.
Yes, but it actually, like, I love those images. I think that it was just like, even though it's like a Minecraft, hammer, but it was, yes. And he actually, the boy actually is a model. He has autism, but it was, kind of a perfect fit for the story. And, I love that we were able to include him in the book as well.
That's one of the most like formative cartoons for me, is that like the cartoon version of John Henry.
Yes.
And I thought that model was such a perfect, like I would never have guessed that was not a purpose-made shoot for this story. It's so perfect.
Yeah, it was so perfect. Like, I mean, we were literally trying to come up with other images, and I was like, literally, like, this is everything that we were wanting right here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Incredible.
So we'll close out, I guess, with a little bit more about the original stories that you guys wrote for the book and decided to shoot for it. In choosing what those stories were, what was the kind of like ethos or choices that you were making that you wanted to share? Because obviously this is a book about fairy tales. You know, you want to make sure that you're getting kind of lessons across, right?
Yes.
What inspired you in terms of lessons that you want to pass on to these?
I think really more so than the lessons, I think it was imagery around them, right? Like yes. I felt like what's kind of missing from the traditional stories, right? Like I said, the princess with no hair, I felt like all the princesses had long hair, or they had, a lot of hair. We also wanted, trying to think what else we had in there, the little girl that had cerebral palsy, right? And we wanted to highlight kids with disabilities. And so it was really more so of, what else was missing from that story. We also obviously wanted to do that story, The Wish with the cowboy, something that just really spoke to, little boys, because we felt like, obviously it's a lot of the stories lean more towards the girls. And so it was just kind of looking at what else is missing. And then obviously what were some of the things that we really wanted to do in terms of imagery that we hadn't done. So like the Candyland story, and then we wanted to do something that had more of like an Afrofuturistic feel. So I'm trying to remember the name of the story, but there was one girl in there that it was like a futuristic type of story. So,
and the skateboarding princess, which is incredible.
Yes. Yeah. That's what it is. So yeah, we were trying to figure out how we could, incorporate some of those things that were missing from the traditional stories in the African folklore.
Amazing. Well, Kahran, Reg, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you guys so much for having us. This is amazing.
Yes. Can you tell people where they can find Crowned and find your work online?
So Crowned is available wherever books are sold. You can visit creativesoulphoto.com/crowned to learn more about it. That's Crowned with an ED. And our website is creativesoulphoto.com. And you can find us on any of the social media channels at Creative Soul Photo.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And remember, listeners, next time you are picturing yourself as a prince or princess, stay creepy.
Stay cool. Spirits was created by Amanda McLaughlin, Julia Shafini, and Eric Schneider, with music by Kevin MacLeod and visual design by Allison Wakeman.
Keep up with all things creepy and cool by following us at Spirits Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr. We also have all of our episode transcripts, guest appearances, and merch on our website, as well as a form to send us in your urban legends and your advice from folklore questions at spiritspodcast.com.
Join our member community on Patreon, patreon.com/spiritspodcast, for all kinds of behind-the-scenes goodies. Just $1 gets you access to audio extras with so much more, like recipe cards, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, for every single episode, director's commentaries, real physical gifts, and more.
We are a founding member of Multitude, an independent podcast collective and production studio. If you like Spirits, you will love the other shows that live on our website at multitude.productions.
Above all else, if you liked what you heard today, please text one friend about us. That's the very best way to help keep us growing.
Thanks for listening to Spirits. We'll see you next week.
Bye.